everybody, so with Spider-Man Far From Home coming out, this is the perfect time to rank all of the Spider-Man films from worst to best. I've always been a huge Spider-Man fan. He's actually been my favorite superhero since I was little. So I've always enjoyed when these new releases for Spider-Man come out, whether it be the Sam Raimi trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 from Mark Webb, and the no MCU entries with Spider-Man Homecoming, and also Spider-Man Far From Home, and even Into the Spider-Verse. So there's an eclectic group of different variations of Spider-Man. Some of them good, some of them not so good, but let's dive into them. But before I do, make sure to leave in the comment section down below how you'd rank all the films. Even if you haven't seen Spider-Man Far From Home, still like to know what your list is, because we can get a discussion going in the comments about it. I love Spider-Man, and I'm sure you all do too, but let's get right into my list with number 8. With my number 8 pick, I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. While this film does have some cool aspects, overall it's just kind of a mess. You can just tell it's really cluttered to the point where it's obvious the studio is just trying to set up a Sinister Six film and just rush it out as fast as they could. Had that not been the studio's main priority, this film could have been much better. Some of the action scenes are actually really cool, and this film has one of the coolest Spider-Man suits to date, to be honest. It's just, not only that, combined with the fact that almost all of the villains are pretty bad, from Paul Giamatti as Rhino and the very book-endy kind of scenes he has. He's not very good. This really weird literal interpretation of the Green Goblin played by Dane DeHaan, and Jamie Foxx's Electro, who's just hamming it up ridiculously throughout the whole movie to the point where it's just absurd and obnoxious. It's just a big missed opportunity for this film, and it's kind of why we didn't get a third one. With my number 7 pick, I have The Amazing Spider-Man. For this being the first attempt at rebooting the character following the Raimi trilogy, I thought this was a very solid attempt. I really liked the cast in this film. Andrew Garfield, who I'm a really big fan of, he brought his own spin on the character, and it gave us some angst, which I thought was actually really good in this kind of storyline. And Gwen Stacy also was really awesome, as Emma Stone is in pretty much everything. Her and Andrew Garfield bounce off each other really well. They have really good chemistry, which makes sense because they did, date in real life. But this film is just really forgettable to me. Like, it's not one I pop in a lot. There's just not much that makes this film stand out from the other ones, whether it be its story and its mystery elements of what happened to Peter Parker's parents, or the villain's storyline with Dr. Kirk Connors and the Lizard wanting to turn everyone in New York City into lizards, which is absolutely ludicrous. It's just a very stock, serviceable film. I don't hate it, but like I said, I just don't pop it in very often among the other Spider-Man films. With my number 6 pick, I have Spider-Man 3. While I don't hate this film like some people do, I do think this has the least amount of magic as far as the Sam Raimi trilogy is concerned. There are some good elements though, like the way that many storylines built up through the first 2 films are wrapped up in a really well done manner, such as like the Peter and Harry relationship. I was excited, especially back in 2007, for the inclusion of the symbiote in this trilogy, just because the symbiote and Venom and all that is just stuff you really enjoy, especially as a Spider-Man fan. And I did like the symbiote stuff. They did get a little overboard with stuff with like the emo Peter Parker and stuff like that. And then they forced in Venom in the last third of the film, and you can definitely tell that was forced in there by the studio. You can tell that Raimi didn't really want that in the movie, and he was forced because it just doesn't feel like it gels well with the rest of the movie. And Topher Grace as Venom / Eddie Brock was just super miscast. I don't know why they thought picking Eric Foreman as Eddie Brock would fit well with because if you've read any comic books, they don't look at all similar. I did, however, really like Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman and his storyline. He felt very much more comic book accurate. It's just a shame because this film has moments and flashes of really great stuff. It's just overpacked with 3 villains, and it's just a really overly cheesy movie at times. Coming in my number 5 pick, I have Spider-Man Homecoming. After briefly introducing the character in Captain America Civil War, we get our first solo entry for Spider-Man into the MCU, and it's really a lot of fun. The film feels much more youthful in its tone, maybe due to Tom Holland and his awkward charm. It just works so well in this high school setting. With him being in the MCU now, I did love his blossoming relationship with some of the characters, such as Tony Stark, kind of being his mentor character in this and kind of building him up to be an Avenger. Of course, that mentor role didn't last very long, unfortunately, since Tony Stark died in Avengers Endgame, but I still like the foundation that they built with him as his mentor in this going forward in the MCU. As far as villains go, I love the casting of Michael Keaton as the Vulture. His motivations are much more grounded. He's not bent on destroying the world. It makes more sense. And he's just a really intimidating figure, whether he's in that suit or he's just talking to Peter man to man. It's just a really intimidating role, perfect for someone like Michael Keaton. At my number 4 pick, I have Spider-Man. I feel kind of old saying that this film is a classic, but it really is. Sam Raimi crafted one of the best origin stories on a comic book film, and although Blade and X-Men started the whole comic book craze, this film blew the doors off of it. Tobey Maguire did a phenomenal job in the role. He's just so so down to earth and relatable, and he just felt like it was a perfect casting choice on their part. And the film just has a really great story, a lot of emotional impact. And Willem Dafoe, this was my first ever experience with Willem Dafoe as an actor. He just does a fantastic job as Norman Osborn and as the Green Goblin, kind of shifting personalities depending on which is what. And I just really love that about him. I mean, that's why I love Willem Dafoe as an actor now, just seeing his performance, and he is so versatile. And not only that, but there's so many other iconic people in this film as well. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, of course, James Franco as Harry Osborn, Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben, probably the best Uncle Ben so far. There's just so many things that are iconic about this film that even though it's lower down, it's just because these other three films are so great. But this film is great as well. Coming in at number 3, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I'm not going to delve too deep into this because it just came out and I did a full review for it. If you'd like to know my full thoughts, definitely check out my review. I'll leave it in the description and at the very end of the video if you want to check it out. But I had such a fun time with this. This is definitely a step up from Spider-Man Homecoming. Tom Holland's kind of delving into the role even deeper. I really like what he's doing with the character of Peter Parker in the MCU. And just the natural evolution of his character from all these films. Obviously, this takes place after Avengers Endgame, and he has to deal with the repercussions of Tony Stark, his mentor, dying. And he's got the added pressure of maybe being the next Iron Man, while also he's just trying to live a normal teenage life, which is the perfect kind of struggle that Peter Parker has, in the comic books. Not only that, but Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is fantastic. I think he actually steals many of the scenes. It's just a really fun, action-packed, thrill ride for a comic book film. Definitely one of the better comic book films I've seen in recent memories. It's just, there's a couple better Spider-Man films. That's the only reason why this is at number 3. With my number 2 pick, I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, this was a really fresh and creative take on Spider-Man, especially with its extremely unique animation style to give it this really fully authentic comic book feel. I've always really liked Miles Morales as a character, so I liked getting a movie from his perspective, also with the added bonus of all the different Spider-Men from different universes, such as Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, and a Peter B. Parker who's kind of on the fat side and he wears sweatpants. It's just a Spider-Man wearing sweatpants the whole time, played by Jake Johnson, is just hilarious to me. I just loved the dynamic between all those characters. The film surprisingly has a really emotionally impactful story arc as well, with Miles Morales and his leap of faith, which just sends chills down my spine just thinking of that scene, because it's just such an epic moment from that film. There's a reason why this is one of my favorite films, actually was my favorite film of last year, just because it's such a great film. And with my number 1 pick, I have Spider-Man 2. Now this film, not only is it one of the best comic book movie sequels, I think it's one of the best comic book movies of all time. It builds off the foundation of the first Spider-Man film and elevates everything to the next level. Peter captures the perfect duality of his struggles in his personal life, also with his life being Spider-Man. The film just has the most heart and emotion. Plus, this has some of my favorite Spider-Man action sequences, especially the train sequence, which is iconic at this point. It's probably one of the best comic book action sequences of all time. Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus is also a really great choice. He's a really sympathetic villain, very charismatic, and his inner struggle throughout the film, mixed with his relationship with Peter, makes him one of the best villains so far in the Spider-Man franchise. All the Raimi films hold a special place in my heart as, just my childhood memories. But definitely Spider-Man 2 is the film I did love when I was younger, and I grew to appreciate it even more as an adult. So yeah, that was my ranking of all the Spider-Man films. I had a really fun time with it because I'm just a big Spider-Man fan. I love talking movies and Spider-Man, but it was just really fun. So let me know in the comment section down below how you rank these Spider-Man films. If you've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, let me know in the comment section down below. What'd you think of it? Where would you put it in your ranking? But I'd like to know your ranking regardless if you've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, just because it's more fun that way, and share your list with everybody else. Let's get a discussion going in the comments. But thanks so much for checking out my video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. Hit that subscribe button so you can keep updated with my movie reviews, trailer reactions, rankings, unboxings, and more. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.